I practiced that one all night long.
Your buddy doesn't.
Okay, so we're going to dive into rationales. Yeah, we're just going to dive in.
You can have any slides there.
Oh, thank you. We do have the slides, please. I just did not hand them out. You passed the test. If I don't hand them out, you're more likely to ask me. So, rationales in the slide and parts of the line. Does that look right? Those are right words?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I was like looking at
I
them.
was making sure.
And you were holding those ones, and I was like looking at them, and I don't think I handed her the right ones. Okay. So, what are rationales, guys? Please.
What'd you say, Dustin?
What are rationales?
You want somebody to answer that?
Yeah, I do. You know, I'm not teach on the whole thing. I want to see what people are at already. Any ideas?
Using your head over your heart.
Using your head over your heart.
Some things that you realize that one of you got a different town, but I don't get a job and money in that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I know it's never going to happen unless you do something.
thinking through that process and that rationale.
Yeah, connecting current behavior or idea with the possible outcome.
Yep.
Ding, ding. No, I didn't even look.
What else? There are other ways. There's a lot of other thoughts on rationales. Go ahead, Jeannie.
The good thinking behind our motivation for wanting something.
Absolutely. That good thinking behind their motivation. And that it's not always clear. You know, because sometimes people want to drop out and they might actually have a good thought about that. Now, there might be other factors that we can mitigate that actually can help them, right? Maybe they need more time with their mom. It's the only time they get with their mom. It's a really important thing they need, right? But we can find maybe a way they can get time with their mom and go to school. So, what else? Anyone else? No takers.
Thinking about,
Sorry, go ahead.
thinking about if this, then this.
If this, then this. Yep. Connection between the two. To do something or not to do something, and the likely meaningful outcome. There's two parts of rationales. So one part I want to pull out here is the meaningful outcome. Because there's a lot of outcomes. And what's meaningful for me might be different than what's meaningful for Libby or Saber. Might be different, right? So we're going to get into this, but when we're looking at doing rationales with youth, you always want to know, it goes back to the futures plan and the strength discovery, what's meaningful for them, right? Magic, okay. So the rationale for having rationales and working, presenting them to youth is one, to help our youth make rational decisions, right? That's something we get taught. Most people don't just naturally do them, but a lot of us don't remember being taught, okay? Because people that are around us more than likely modeled it for us. Or, you know, how many mothers provide rationales to their children every single day, right? I think of my grandma sometimes when teaching this, because she used to say all the time, there's two lessons a week, all the time, you know, children, stop jumping on the bed, or you're going to hit your head. Because that's my grandma's sing-song version of it. Now, that might not have been the most meaningful outcome for me, because I actually just wanted to jump on the bed and have fun. But it's a form of that. You just need to polish it up a little bit. Anyways, but it helped me to make rational decisions. You know what? Sometimes when I'm jumping around somewhere, I'm thinking, where's the ceiling? Okay? Maybe if you're sitting in a car going down a dirt road, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this before. You find out where that ceiling is pretty fast because as whoever's driving, or usually my brothers, are going like this, you know, I'm going to slide down in my chair because my mom taught me, you know, to watch out for my head. These are little things. It doesn't seem connected, but that's where those kind of thoughts begin to flourish. To engage the young people, okay? Because we're not just going to tell them, don't do this, don't do that, do this. We're going to connect it to those outcomes and those meaningful outcomes. To teach our youth to consider others, help them take control, and to strengthen self-determination. Out of these reasons for rationale, what sticks out to you guys?
Letting them take control.
Anyone else? Who else?
Consider others.
Consider others?
I do this, don't just think about what you do, but how it affects others.
Yep, that's going to affect the people around us, especially those they care about. Sometimes they want it to affect other people. They need it more. Who else? I realized in my fog brain this morning, I didn't do a very good job of really stepping. I'm going to go backwards for a second because I just spend just a second longer here. Really, what is rationale? Okay. So I want to do a little bit of practice. I'll give you an example, and I want to do a little bit of practice. A very straightforward one would be, if you go to bed earlier, right, you're more likely to feel tired, or you're less likely to feel tired in the morning, right? Very straightforward rationale. What would be a rationale if I'm a youth who wants to graduate high school, right, and I'm really, let's see, mad at Annette, and so I'm not going to want to be in this class any longer. I think I'm going to go sit out in the hallway. And now my skills trainer, Jill Williams, is over here, right? Hey, what you doing out in the hallway? What rationale might the awesome skills trainer called Jill Williams provide to me as a student in that situation? So recap, my goal is to graduate. I'm mid-class. I'm having conflict with Annette and Leanne. And so I'm not going to go to class. I'm going to sit in the hallway right now. And now the skills trainers come over and they're talking to me. And we're at the point where she's going to provide a rationale. What's a rationale? You're more likely to graduate if you go back into class. Absolutely. That's one way of wording it right there. Anyone provide anything different?
I think the first thing that she would do would be listen and try to figure out why she's not in class and hear her perspective on that.
I'm really mad at Leanne and Annette. They're annoying me, so I'm sitting out here in the hallway.
You're really mad with Leanne and Annette. And then I think what I would do a little bit is say, remind, sometimes I need reminders a little bit. Oh, from our conversation, I remember that it's really important for you to graduate on time, which means being in class. What can I do? I would ask them, what can we do to help facilitate this, to get the conflict resolved
Absolutely.
in order to get in class?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're getting there. And it's really hard sometimes when you just get presented a situation because I have to take the whole youth into consider. Like in a training, it's the hardest piece. When we present you a certain situation, there's so many variables. So that was great. We're getting right up to those rationales. Yeah.
And I like the way Rox and Joe presented it in, rather than saying, you're not going to graduate if you don't stay in class, it was presented that way. It was, you're more likely to graduate if you stay in class.
Yeah.
Positive framing.
Absolutely. And you're teaching that rational thought, right?
I feel like it might be okay to question too. So what do you think you're accomplishing by, being out of class?
Exploring what the goal is going to be in our class as well. Yeah, and I think with the rationales, one thing is we're going to connect it back. We're going to try to connect it. Really, we're going to really focus more so though on their goal and their future. So if you go back into class, so Leanne, by staying in class, you are more likely to finish on time, and then go into those questions. How can we resolve the situation between the two? Or how do you think you go back into class and be successful so you can achieve that goal? So we're going to stay focused on that goal, right? The goal that we're trying to support them on, really focusing on that piece. What is a real tendency for us as helpers is to kind of get in the, I call it the wash. Because we're so focused on what they're not doing. You know, they're not in the classroom, or they're not attending school, or they're not, you know, instead of, and that really, you guys have probably had this conversation where you just start spinning. That's what I call it the spin cycle, right? Just start spinning. I said, you know, why are you out here in the hallway? I don't want to go into school. Well, you need to go into class because otherwise you're not going to finish. You're not going to finish on time, graduate on time. Well, but I hate Leanne and whatever. Well, you know, you shouldn't really do that. You need to get along. Like, I'm making it really slower. I'm like maybe little snipper answers that we might give. But we do this little thing where it's just this tit-tat, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Instead of stepping back and looking, what is this young person, what have they asked, sorry, what have they told me is their goal? And that's, in this situation, is graduate on time. Okay? Maybe another youth's goal was to have positive relationships. I want to increase my friend base. So we might have rationale of, you know, if we were to, maybe after class, because probably not during class is the appropriate time, after class, maybe the 3 of us could sit down, or 4 of us could sit down and talk about, work through the situation. You know, if you go back in there and you tell Leanne about, you know, what you think about these, how her actions are affecting you, you're more likely to build a friendship than to lose one. You know, and you got to know a lot about your youth and that other youth before you just throw them back in there. But my point is, you always got to be on that goal. Always focused about that goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really hard to kind of grab it in conversation when we're just talking. I want to make sure. It takes practice, because it's not a lot of the normal conversations that people have in their day-to-day lives. And because we care so much, we want them to just stop doing those things that are causing them so much trouble. Or to start doing those things. You know, we just want them to do that. But we need to teach them, you know, we talked about in this next slide, we're going to teach them their, how do they word it? We want to teach them to take control for themselves. So when we provide that rationale of, if, you know, you return to class, you are more likely to graduate, you're beginning to teach them those positive thought patterns behind why they're doing things. You know, me getting up and coming to work here at 8 o'clock in the morning, I don't know about you guys, but 8 o'clock in the morning is not my favorite time, and I've had this conversation, okay? But by me coming here, I am now able to actually bring across the message I feel is really important, and really teach on something that is really, I feel really benefits the youth in our agency and in this town, right? So that's why I can rationalize, and because my boss asked me to come and I'd like to keep my job, that's why I can rationalize getting myself out of bed at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I have learned how to connect what my behavior is to the likely meaningful outcome. And that's what we want to teach our youth to do by providing the rationales. Okay, who's got action? So, 4 types of rationales. First type is doing appropriate behavior is more likely going to produce a positive outcome. Or not doing an inappropriate behavior is more likely also to produce appropriate outcomes. So let's look here. We have Tony. Okay, that's what his name's going to be, is Tony. The reason Tony has expressed to us that he even attends school is because of Lisa. Okay, because he really likes Lisa. Okay? See? He's like, yeah, I'll go to school because Lisa's there. All right? So, if, say, Tony chooses not to go to school, right? Yeah, Lisa is more likely going to go out with Albert here. All right? And yeah, that doesn't make him so happy. does not want that, okay? How can we word, let's go back up here. We're talking to Tony. We know that Tony goes to school because he wants to see Lisa, right? How can we word rationale? Just stick with just the rationale. I know we have a lot of engagement pieces around. Let's just practice the rationale piece. What rationale could we give to Tony for staying in school? Sometimes it seems.
Wait, it's all related to Lisa?
Yep. His goal to be in school. You know the reason he goes to school. He's told you is because of Lisa.
Well,
Go ahead.
Sounds like it's more likely that you'll get to spend time with Lisa. If she stays at school.
Yeah, staying in school. What would be the typical reason we would want to give him for staying in school?
education.
Education, because we know that that's important, right? This is where it gets tricky as skills trainers, okay? And as case managers, and as program coordinators, and as helping people, okay? Because we know, well, we feel we know, we think we know, okay? That it's more important that he goes to school so he can get his education than it is for him to go see Lisa, right? There's so many factors in there that we might be right. We also might be wrong. Because if Lisa wasn't there, he might not attend school. He might not get his education. So we are really happy that Lisa's there because you know what? We can say, Tony, if you go to school, you are more likely to get to spend time with Lisa. It gets him in the door, right? Now we can do some work. But if I just say, Tony, you need to go to school, don't you know? If you don't have your education, you're not going to go anywhere.
Another one of those adults. Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah. Not a meaningful, that's why it talks about a meaningful outcome. A meaningful outcome is not our meaningful outcome. The meaningful outcome is what's meaningful to the youth. This takes a little rewiring of our thought processes, okay? But it's really important, and it really builds that base, that engagement base for the youth that we're working with. And a lot of times, this is where you're starting. You're starting with things like, I'm so happy to go to school because I get to see Lisa. Okay, so, but it gets them in the door. We're there. We can work with that.
That's the motivation.
I don't know how many times I say that in a day. We can work with that. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to go back up. This slide's a little funny, guys. Sorry. Let's see.
I will finish this.
What are some of the reasons while I'm doing this that,
That's
okay, what are some of the reasons that our youth might have that is really hard for us sometimes to work with? Like maybe Lisa's an example, girlfriend or boyfriend. Maybe a reason to, let's stick with school though, to go to school. What are some reasons that youth might want to go to school that are different than our reasons?
Might want to or might not want to.
Let's start with want to.
Social aspect.
The social aspect, huge. It's a huge piece. Get out of the house. Yep. Structure. Breakfast, lunch.
good lunch.
Smoke breaks.
Smoke breaks. Yeah.
They have activity, yes, sports or.
Sports. Yep. Different activities. Yeah. All these different reasons. We typically will focus in on, well, because it's the point of school, right? The educational piece. But they have all these other reasons that they're going. Were any of those reasons you mentioned, other than maybe smoke break, but really all that bad? Not really. It's okay to be social and participate in activities and have structure and have a good meal and, these different things. So we don't have to take their thinking and shift it over to, no, you go to school because you need an education, okay? Go to school and they'll get an education, okay? Let's get them in the door if it's for Lisa or for sports or for food or whatnot, and that's telling us what they need. If they're going because they really need that social piece, then that's a connection to us. There's this desire for a social connection, right? If they're going because they need that structure, well, that lets us know this youth needs structure. That gives us another tool for working with the youth. They're telling us everything they need. We've just got to slow down and listen to what they're telling us through what they're trying to get. Every behavior, we've talked about this in other trainings, every behavior, they're trying to accomplish something. There's a reason behind that. So let me get back to rationales. So rationales, we got to make them personal to the youth. That's what we've been talking about. Have to be personal to the youth. Really, if a rationale is not working, the first thing you want to stop and go, is that about me and my thoughts about why they should do something? Or is that about them, something that we know that is a likely, some meaningful outcome to them? That's what we need to ask ourselves, because usually that's where it breaks down, right there. We want to state the likely outcome, and we want to be behaviorally appropriate. If you're nice to Libby, she's more likely to be your friend. What on earth does nice mean? You know what? I didn't totally cuss her out. I just said that it was a bad time. I had a bad time with you, and I thought you stunk, and I hated your shirt. I didn't use one single swear word there. I don't understand. I was being nice. We want to be behaviorally specific. When you greet Libby and say hello, and maybe try one of the things she wants to do, do some of the things she wants to do, whatever you're working on with that youth. Maybe the youth only wants to do what they want to do. Maybe that's what you're working on. Try an activity that Libby likes to do, and you're more than likely to build a friendship with Libby. Whatever you're working on there. But you want to be very specific in what behavior you want them to do, not just a general piece. Because words mean all sorts of things. So you want to make sure that you're on the same page with that. Okay. This thing only wants to work half the time on this. So, I guess that's what we get, guys. That's all the time you get to think. You got it now. I'm just kidding. Let's just go through these, actually. First one. If you'd work harder in school, like you said, you would, at the beginning of the year, you might have passed more classes. Thinking about, is it personal to the youth? Stating likely outcome, behaviorally specific. What do you guys think? Rationale or not?
I don't like that one.
Okay, I have it. Focused on the path. I don't really like it. What was it?
I was gonna say it sounds judgmental.
Sounds judgmental.
Yeah.
I would say for the past, that's just totally unhelpful. It's done.
Because it's done.
Leaning on the negative a little bit.
It's not behaviorally specific. You work harder. Well, what does that mean?
Right. Absolutely. Let's see what it says. I know the sound is. There you go. Okay, you're right. For all those reasons that were mentioned. Also, the way I said it a little bit was like, you worked harder.
Right.
Our tone is so much.
Even if you said it, if you worked harder,
Yeah.
it still doesn't.
This one doesn't have any redeemable factors, is what you're saying. I agree with you on that one.
How do you know I didn't work hard?
Okay, who wants to read the second one?
If you learn to greet people appropriately, you can use a skill on your job interview and you'll be more likely to get the job.
Okay, what do we think, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Any other not so yeses?
It could be more specific about how to treat people appropriately.
That's
What
a
does
good
that
point.
mean?
Yep, that's true.
I don't know how to do that.
Right. I said what the. What are you up to?
Oh, that's when the in vivo comes in.
Huh?
I said that's when the in vivo
That's
comes
when
in.
the Vivo comes in. That's exactly right. Let's see what they
That's
say.
role playing.
They say, I'm allowed to do here. But agree though. Actually, we had talked about Coral, who's the trainer. We had talked about this one, and we agreed as well that even though yes, it has all the parts, it really still could be more behaviorally appropriate. You might use it if you've already done a lot of work with the youth to define what that meant. Those agree people meant, but you still, it's better to be more specific. Shake their hand, say hello, whatever it is you're trying to work on there. Okay, number 3. Who wants to read it?
When you cheat in class, you might get caught and may lose your place on the wrestling team.
What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
Here, I'm not sure. Well, actually, I read that in the face. So talk to me about the I'm not sure's, if you want to.
Well, the part I kind of question was you might get caught because can, the youth can easily turn around and say, well, we might not get caught, and I hope it's okay.
Yep, absolutely. Maybe I want to take that chance.
The part where it says when you cheat in class, that's kind of like assuming that the kid is cheating in class. So I don't know, I might change it to like, if you choose to cheat in class.
If you didn't know that they had already, like if that wasn't what you were processing, that's exactly how
Oh
I
yeah,
would
if
read
the
it.
kid outright said, yeah, I cheated on my test today, then obviously they did.
But if you had not there, that's a great way to lead into it. If you cheat, if you were to cheat in class, you might get caught. Exactly. And maybe just the piece about, you might get caught, I usually just own the other half, or you might not. If you were to get caught, then you're risking losing, place on the wrestling team. So sometimes you can get past that by letting it. But if you don't have anything else to use, we'll put it that way. Let's see what they say. It's good to process these though, because even though they're right up here in the hand clap, we want to look at why, or what we can improve on them. Okay, let's go. What about number 4?
You're likely to be suspended from school if you keep fighting with other students.
I think personal to the youth, personal to the youth, likely outcome, and behaviorally specific. 3 things we're looking for. Good rationale.
I think it could be more specific to the situation, so it's not just an overall broad umbrella fighting with other students.
When I read that, I don't know what the goal is for the youth. It doesn't tell me whether that, is it indeed a goal for them to stay in school, or is it indeed a goal for them to have positive relations?
Right.
It's not clear on that end, but.
Yeah. You're going to have to make some assumptions, or it's just not there. Sure, let's see. All right. That thing sounded pretty sad. I got to figure out what's going on with that. Okay. Next one. When you let your mom know where you are, she doesn't worry as much, and make more likely to let you do more on your own.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
There's a lot of smiles across this room. I'm loving it. Okay. Okay. If you keep smoking weed with the homegirls, you're likely to be arrested and may have to do time. What do you think, guys?
Again, it doesn't tell me what the goal is for you.
The only way you can really assume is if it was to not get arrested. I don't know. It's not really there.
It's like a scare tactic.
Sounds a little like a scare tactic. Don't do it or you're getting arrested.
Or do it without the universe.
Yeah. If I take the girl out and I just do it by myself, then I'm less likely to get caught. I got this rationale thing now. Okay. Let's see. And you guys are right. So great job on that, picking that piece up. So again, that it's behaviorally specific. I can never say that word. You state the likely outcome, right? Might be the likely positive outcome or the likely negative outcome, depending on what you're talking about. And I'm sure you're right, yeah. And make it personal to the youth. It has to be connected to the youth. And one that I really put that out in is we're talking about, of course this wasn't a good example, but when we're talking about being arrested or going to jail or breaking probation or all these big things, we can't assume that they think that's a negative thing. I've had more than one youth tell me they preferred when they were in detention. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, a couple of these are dismissing some parts. So, you could say, you said you really enjoy going to school, the school outside of the facility, or you really enjoy your
Yeah.
science, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these just need to add either the personal to the youth, or that just needs to add the behavioral specific. It doesn't mean that you throw the whole thing out. That's a good point. They're just missing part of those 3 components, which is really important when you're talking about providing rationales to youth and really helping them be able to connect the pieces of their behavior to outcomes that they want. sheet, so I want to make sure this is the one I want to do. Yep, it is. Okay. So on the packet we just handed out, towards the end, there should be a page 40. It's not 40 page. So let me see. Does it show up? You don't have a page 40? It's not the end?
Oh, yeah, I've got one.
Here, I have it next, it's right here. I only got half.
I put it in my folder.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Who didn't get the second half?
You got it.
Everybody got it? I didn't get it yet. Do you still have it there? Yeah, it's right here. I'll say it. I'm confident. Okay. Everybody find it? So let's do 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. Let's do groups of 2. I think one group might have 3. And what we're going to have you do is write rationales. Can I borrow your paper now that you have one? So let's try to do, 2 or 3. Basically, what I want you to do is think of youth that you're working with. And it's better if you know the youth and what maybe one of their goals is, because it helps make it youth specific. And in your group, each work together to write a rationale for 2 different identified youth. So identify youth you want to talk about, you want to write a rationale for, and then write one in your group. So groups of 2. What questions do you guys have about those groups?
I got a lot of I don't have it right here.
I think she was trying to get on to okay. Oh, anyways. Huh?
Okay.
Okay, well, we did this one. So, just as you know. Let's see.
What would be personal to the youth? The consequence that matters.
So if you do something, it will be more.
Oh, yeah, like they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, I don't really give a
This behavior
flying
will
to.
make it more like respectful.
Well, you can always bring it back to.
So I think I was thinking big for him.
Sometimes I bring the rationale back to their treatment program.
So generate something around that because
You'll be more likely to stay on,
really depressed and
stay on track with graduating, at the appropriate time, or, at your,
the youth's depressed and conflict suicide ultimately. But so he doesn't want to be on them for that those reasons, or doesn't he wants
Or
to be on them because he can't
well, this person
school.
is respectful
And
of
so
their actions.
write something about
Do they normal as their goal?
going, we made it one on Friday,
Have
to look at new medications.
Have you ever talked to that person about that? Well, just how,
Yeah,
I mean, like, oh, you can develop how important it is for you to
there's a level. So it's basically our class.
well, I guess it's a pretty important one. So it kind of depends on if you've ever had a conversation about it as well. Because it's hard to make it personal unless you haven't ever talked about it. You know what I mean?
So if you
Oh, well, I like to say, oh yeah, remember we were talking about how you feel like it's important for people to treat you?
Oh, sorry. That was my bad. It just went, yeah. You guys want to work together that way. You can
Well,
help each other out.
what I'm thinking here is that if you treated your teacher or whoever it is respectfully, it's more likely that you will be treated well in return, or respectfully in return, and you might have more success in that class, type of thing. You know what I mean? How's that sound? Well, we really went far, like saying, okay, you've already talked about this, saying it's important, so you have to have a little balance. Yeah, for sure. Or, well, I know that it's important having success in school and look at us. If you are respectful of your teacher by, and you could very much define it, be respectful by listening, and not interrupting, or whatever it is, the behavior, it has to be specific, whatever it was, I don't know. Oh, really?
So you could
Okay,
kick
so it wasn't to the teacher.
No, but then the teacher.
if you continue to show up for your partner.
So then it would be, I mean, you could say. So I want to hear what you want to say.
You pass your so then you get to stay in the team, right?
Do you want to relate it to the Hampton House?
Getting look for a job. You are more.
Or you could relate it to like, if you're engaging in
happen to them.
when you're respectful in class, the more likely you'll be more likely to, or show
Thank you for being here too.
treatment to these angels, or no, I don't know if that's true, but that you are at a phase that you're ready to graduate. So, you know what I mean? That will.
So let's say if you're in a classroom, you're about to deal with you are the same. That's where
Where it shows up.
your tuition.
Well,
So if you practice.
oh, really?
So he shuts down.
So,
No, but we're not doing
being
that.
respectful in class was more likely
So like,
you graduated from a teacher. I guess, I don't know. That doesn't sound that great. It sounds kind
because we have all this,
yeah.
well, I work for directional,
Thinking
it's
about it.
actually currently have you.
Yeah, because he didn't never wants to do his work. So, I have some question on this.
What would you want
About,
for,
okay, so what is your commitment okay, from high school? Okay, that's right. Nothing else. So your goal is to graduate from high school. So, really, in order to graduate from high school, you have to pass your classes. You have to be there, and you're going to have to do
so
some.
by him not being able to.
So, I mean, I have to break it down. It's very simple. You're more likely to graduate on time if you're doing the work that your teacher asks you to do when she's asking you to do it. Rather than sitting there and not so rather than not being in class. Right.
I mean, you can say that.
Right.
Just been getting work. Yeah, most days try to come in during it rotates depending on like if it's or if I don't have
Yeah, well, there, before it actually, the other
to be available to me, but
so you would say.
to be there yeah, well, because they drop off at the first and third Tuesday, they drop off the foster kids, and age, their biological age is up to age 11, from 4 to 11, so they get 2 hours.
Because
It's really helpful.
It's even stronger. There you go.
Okay.
And that's even more, that's even stronger. You know,
I understand program is not a goal.
by doing,
Yeah, I've got mine.
You have to use goals for school. Just like with Devon's goals for women.
see how it takes a minute though to come down and boil it down was actually sometimes really strong. Probably just, a couple more minutes here to let people finish up, a couple more groups are finishing.
Well, that's a long rationale, woman. Really worry.
You're more likely to get this day, yeah.
So,
For 2 weeks,
all right. Did we get a chance